the media had gaslit so many people that maybe aren't fully informed and are easily manipulated into thinking that President Trump was this fascist, Nazi, et cetera, et cetera. So going into the election, I was kind of like, all right, there's no way people actually believe that. But also, there's a lot of people that don't have time to invest researching and just knowing what the hell's going on. I was like, maybe they'll pull off the biggest heist in history where someone who never got a single vote on a primary somehow becomes the messiah. This restored faith in America for me because it just got so fucking ridiculous. For my friends on the left, I hope a lesson can be learned from this from you guys. The people running your party have gone so totally insane. The fact that you guys are pushing things like 9-year-olds getting puberty blockers and gender mutilation, and everyone just rolls their eyes like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. But then they gaslight you. It's this assumption that they have the moral and intellectual high ground on all of us, and they belittle us. That strategy backfired greatly. You're listening to the Born Primitive Podcast. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Born Primitive Podcast. I am without Big Tone. He is still on paternity leave, so you just have me today, and we are doing a Q&A. We put out a Q&A on Instagram and got a ton of questions for you guys, which is always appreciated. So my team went through them and picked the best that they thought, and I'm about to go through them kind of in real time with y'all right now. So without further ado, let's get right into it. All right, first question. What has customer feedback taught you about what people truly value in your brand? Great question, and I think this is probably appropriate given what just happened with our Veterans Day campaign, but I think what we've learned, and I think we kind of always knew this, but I think it's becoming more apparent now, is that, of course you have to make good apparel. We kind of call that internally like an implied task. Like that has to happen for you to be successful. But more importantly, for those that have been with us for a while, kind of know this is how we roll. But there needs to be a set of values around your company that makes you unique and different. And I think something that I'm proud to say we've done has been consistent to those values and unapologetic, honestly, at a time when maybe it wasn't so popular to do so, or perhaps society was creating a perception that it wasn't popular to do so. So I think that's probably the biggest thing right now. I think that is our secret sauce. I know we still want to make great product, and that's always something we're trying to improve. But, with this Veterans Day thing we just did, it was just absolutely wild to be able to pay off $10.5 million, which I think that might be turning into $11 million in veteran medical bills. It's just very authentic. It's true to who we are and our promise to give back. We had our D-Day campaign earlier this year with the D-Day shoe and donated a bunch of money to charity there to get some World War II vets back to Normandy. And tons of cool stuff in the works for 2025 already on the kind of the charitable front, and just that kind of unapologetic American patriotism. Saw that with our Freedom Capsule, with the Betsy Ross shoe and the Gadsden flag shoe, the Don't Tread on Me edition. For whatever reason, that seems to be controversial when it's the founding values of our republic. So we're going to continue to be who we are, and we realize that is, in a way, what I feel gives us an advantage to a lot of these big brands that are either publicly traded or owned by private equity firms, because they're like afraid to do that. As wild as it is, there's certain sets of values that are okay in that world, and you're going to see it and you're going to roll your eyes because it's the same bullshit that you see, and they're going to go in whatever direction the wind is blowing that day in corporate America. And since we don't have any PE people investing in us, and of course we're not publicly traded, we can do whatever the hell we want over here at Born Primitive, and it's really exciting, and it allows us to do things like this. And we are very grateful that people have joined our team and have supported what we've done by shopping our brand. All right, next one. Oh boy, what do you think is the biggest takeaway from the election? I guess maybe that's a good segue. Let me take a sip of my coffee here before this one. All right. Well, obviously the election was pretty wild, pretty stressful. And that's for people on both sides of the aisle. I think, there was a lot at stake on this one. And, I think the biggest thing that, I guess it taught me was that I still have faith in the American people, but I think we still have a ton of work to do with the division in this country. I was worried that we had gotten to a point where the media had gaslit so many people that maybe aren't fully informed and are easily manipulated into thinking, that President Trump was this fascist, Nazi, et cetera, et cetera. So going into the election, I was kind of like, all right, there's no way people actually believe that. But also there's a lot of people that don't have time to invest in like, researching and just knowing what the hell's going on in current affairs. So I was like, maybe they'll pull this off. Maybe they'll pull off the biggest heist in history, where someone who never got a single vote on a primary somehow becomes the messiah overnight and is gonna, be the next Barack Obama, right? And that's what the media was trying to convince everyone. And not only did they do that, but they doubled down on their hatred and the fear mongering of President Trump. So I think this restored faith in America for me. Obviously this is just my personal opinion. I voted for Donald Trump. That's probably pretty obvious. As Americans, we're not going to allow them to gaslight us, and we're no longer going to allow them to call us out on their bullshit, because it just got so fucking ridiculous. And for my friends on the left, like, I hope a lesson can be learned from you guys, where it's like the people running your party have gone so totally insane, and you all need to intervene and like make it less extreme. Like it's completely fucking insane. The fact that you guys are pushing things like 9-year-olds getting puberty blockers and gender mutilation and all these other we could go an entire 2-hour episode just talking about all the dumb shit you guys have pushed in the last 3.5 years, and everyone just rolls their eyes like, you got to be fucking kidding me. Are these people, have they lost their goddamn minds? And then they gaslight you, and well, if you think a 9-year-old shouldn't have a gender transition, then you're a bigot, and you're just misinformed. And it's this assumption that they have the moral and intellectual high ground on all of us, and they belittle us. And I think that strategy backfired greatly. I think like the fact that you put in, I think it was 47 executive orders on day one for President Biden to reverse all of the border control policies that Trump had done, and then to try to gaslight us and to say, oh, it's the Republicans' fault. They didn't allow us to pass a legislation that was 2.5 years into my presidency. And it's like, okay, well, what you didn't say is that allowed amnesty for all these people and allowed, I think, another 2 million per year to come in. So it's like, of course they said no to the deal. They try to gaslight us and say, oh, the Republicans are the reason the border isn't secure. It's like, are you kidding me? 47 executive orders on day one, and we all know why, right? And it's like they're trying to rig elections in the future, and they don't even try to hide that. They try to push a bill in Congress to make it required that you're an American citizen to vote in a federal election, and only 5 Democrats voted yes. 5, right? You got California passes a state law that you can't show voter ID in California, right? You have Atlanta, Georgia, moving the All-Star game, a few years ago, claiming that it was racist that people have to show IDs to vote in a swing state, right? Literally, the MLB moved their game to Colorado. So you got the CEO of Delta Airlines writing a letter saying, oh, this is horrible, and Coca-Cola chiming in, this is horrible. It was this concerted effort, and it was so goddamn obvious. But my concern was like, okay, not everyone is like into this as I am. Like, these regular people aren't going to know that, and they might believe it. And that's why I was concerned going into the election. And there's just so many other things. We're giving billions of dollars to other countries that hate us or don't even support us, and at the same time, people can't even pay their grocery bill. So I think the chickens came home to roost on this one. I predicted a landslide. It was even on the podcast episode of that day that we aired. And I think Tony thought I was crazy, but that's exactly what we saw. It wasn't even close. And that gives me faith that the American people are resilient. And it's not to say the Republican policies are always going to be the right ones, but this was absolutely a correction to the madness. And for the Democrats, there's 2 ways they can dissect this. There's all right, well, we're going to just double down and continue to gaslight them and say they're insane and they're a threat to democracy. Or if this was like a sports analogy, if you get your ass kicked 35-7 in a football game, maybe you watch the tape and figure out what the hell you did wrong. And maybe there's maybe, I'm not going to hold my breath, some humility in that of like, hey guys, maybe we shouldn't accuse 170 million Americans of being bigots. Maybe we shouldn't be calling everyone racist because they disagree or because they think we should have a wall on our border. Well, how does that make you a racist? It's just gotten so freaking insane. Maybe we shouldn't be mutilating our kids' genitals and then acting like if you're someone who's against it, you're a total nutbag. Maybe you're the freaking nutbag. So it's just like, I got a lot of friends that are Democrats, and of course, I think we need to get to the point where we can have cordial conversations, and I fortunately have that with those friends. But I think their party has hijacked this far left ideology, and there's no way you're going to win an election with that stance unless you rig it. That's the bottom line. And I mean, I'm not going to go down a rabbit hole, but if you're interested, check out the bar graph of the last 4 federal elections on how many votes the different candidates got. 2020, I think Biden got 81 million. Just look at the bars of the other 4 elections around that. A year where conveniently a global pandemic's happening, and all of a sudden there's millions and millions and millions of mail-in ballots that historically not vetted because you can't actually see the person in real life. So that, I think, illuminated something in American history that we'll never probably truly know. But it's almost at this point a mathematical and statistical impossibility if you really look at it. Particularly, let's all be honest, Joe Biden was not exactly a rock star candidate. At the time, the dude could barely put together a coherent sentence and didn't really campaign at all. And then he comes out and gets like 21 million more votes than Barack Obama. Are you kidding me? Well, so I'll leave that one there. But last thing I'll say on this is, like, I think we're seeing a major shift in media, and I think that's a positive in this whole debrief here, because networks like CNN, MSNBC, the ratings are absolute trash, and they're the ones pumping out all of this complete bullshit. You probably saw Bezos, who owns the Washington Post, came out and basically said we need to try to be more neutral. And all of the lefties at the Post, flipped out, and they're protesting because they're all liberal. He's either doing that because he thinks it's the right thing to do, or he's trying to get ahead of the pain train that's coming from now that the Republicans are in power, and he's trying to keep good faith with them because of all of his business interests. So I don't know which one it is, but it was very interesting to see a guy like Bezos come out and say that. And we'll see what happens with the Washington Post. But I think the CNNs, the MSNBCs, the New York Timeses of the world, if they want to stay in business, particularly the television outlets, they can't keep pushing this far left-wing ideology because people are over it and they know it's bullshit and no one tunes in. I think as we're recording this, I think MSNBC is out to be purchased from Comcast. Their ratings are in the tank. If you were to add up CNN and MSNBC and double it, it still doesn't reach a Fox News rating, right? So that's just, the truth is there. You can't dispute that. So we'll see what happens. I think the one thing the Republicans need to be careful of is don't squander this opportunity to over legislate. I think their biggest task, and this may be impossible, is to try to find some unity in this and lead with restoring hopefully some of that common ground. But it might be hard because it's like we're so far apart. And last thing I'll say on this is I think this was a fascinating. This is we're experiencing this in real time, a fascinating experiment of the power of and manipulation of the American media. Because the day after the election, of course, a lot of us are active on social, and I'm seeing people's reactions. These are people that I follow, that I'm friends with on a personal level, and a lot of them, a few of my female friends were posting these tear-filled rants about how could their daughters possibly be raised in this new society, and they're literally crying. These are grown women that are 35 years old, they have an Ivy League education, that somehow now think on January 20th, 2025, their daughter, just because she's a girl, no longer has human rights. And, how, what kind of message does this send? And they're literally crying on social media. And I'm like, how gaslit and manipulated have you been by the bullshit that you've been ingesting that you now literally think that on January 20th, human rights go away? The dude was already president for 4 years. What as a woman, what right are you losing? That's another thing they're pushing that I think backfired. Oh, on day one, he's going to institute a national abortion ban. One, he can't do that. It's now at the states, and he never even said that. And he's actually even more progressive than most of his party. So it's like, where are you even getting your information? And as the father of a little girl, that honestly fired me up. I think that's the only really thing I've taken personal. Is like, okay, so you all are implying, because for those of us who voted for Donald Trump, that we are against women's rights and that, we're just going to concede that, but Trump, so let's go. It's like, hey, I'm a father to a daughter. You know what I mean? And I think this is 100% the best pick for prosperity in this country and to get back to strong American values and security. And if you break the law, you go to fucking jail and you don't get a free pass because of some bullshit excuse they're making for certain segments of our society that can't follow the law. All these things, it's like our society under this rule will be safer for women, right? Maybe we're not bringing gangsters from Venezuela in across the border that are raping women in broad daylight and then bashing their head in with a fucking rock, right? So don't freaking give me the bullshit on, oh, my daughter's no longer safe or all of her rights have gone away. Enough with the victim mentality. Anyone in this country has such a unique opportunity to achieve success and happiness, but you have to work for it. It doesn't matter what gender you are, what race you are, any of those things. If you work hard and apply yourself, it doesn't fucking matter. You can succeed. So I that's something, obviously, as my daughter gets older, I'm going to instill in her, and I will not let some teacher in her whatever grade tell her, oh, because you're a woman, you're disadvantaged and you don't have a fair shot. That's fucking bullshit. She's going to learn to be a savage and to work hard and apply herself, and that she's going to go get it herself. So for all these ladies that are crying and saying the world is going to end on January 20th and all of the women are no longer going to have rights, like, that's just so ridiculous, and it's so indicative of how far apart we are as a country, because you guys genuinely believe that. So I think this is a fascinating experiment in propaganda in the American media, in the power of persuasion. The fact that these insane fringe thoughts can now become mainstream for some people on the left, to the point that they're literally crying. And it's just something to think about. All right, went a little long on that one. Sorry, guys. Okay, another zinger here. Shit. What would it look like to get BP entirely made in the U.S.? All right, so good question. And honestly, this is like I don't want to say a stressful topic, but this is something that we do get a lot of kind of snide comments on social media. Oh, you're this American brand, and you do all these things for veterans, but like, you're not made in the USA. And while I don't fault people for making those comments, because they're just misinformed and they don't understand, one, business, but two, the American textile industry, and I don't expect them to, because these are just random people that have no skin in the game on that. So to answer the question, what would it look like to get BP entirely made in the U.S.? If we're saying entirely, I will say damn near impossible. To oversimplify this, the availability of fabrics in the United States, as well as the cost it would take to make things in the United States, would blow your mind. I'll give you one example. We actually are moving some of our production to the United States. We are making a Berry-compliant line for Born Primitive Tactical and Born Primitive Outdoor, and this will allow us to sell to the U.S. government and federal units and things like that. That's a requirement for a lot of these entities. So we have, for the last, almost 2 years, been digging into how do we make this happen, and what would it take? And we're actually almost there. We're really excited about it. I think this is a good breakthrough for our company. But the only reason this business method is feasible is because we're selling to the U.S. government, who doesn't care what it costs. So our Op Assault pant right now, we sell for $209. This is a very complex pant. There's like 12 pockets. It has built-in knee pad pockets, a bunch of different fabrics. It's a super high-end tactical pant that is absolutely crushing right now. But there's zippers and all these, like, the craftsmanship it takes to make this pant is incredible, right? So we've had to find production facilities in the United States, and that was like finding a needle in the haystack that could make a pant this technical. fortunately, because we're a bigger brand now, we are able to be, in on conversations that like a startup, there's just no chance. Like these are big production facilities that have production lines for large American brands, right? That you would know the names to. And so we're fortunate to even be able to get a meeting with these companies because they're doing 20,000 units a week for some of these companies, and that's just like one line, right? But the $209 pair of pant that we currently import, the cost to make that at one of the facilities we might have to make it is actually more than the retail price. It's over $209 just to make it. So if we were made in the USA for our direct-to-consumer business, that pant would have to be close to $500, right? And the American consumer simply will not pay that. You can pound your chest and say America, rah, rah, all day long. But when push comes to shove, the American consumer won't actually back it with action. Now, if it's a cotton t-shirt that normally is $32 that they have to sell for $37 because it's made in the USA, maybe you can get away with that. But for highly technical cut and sew fabrics like in products like we have, sports bras, leggings, joggers, all of our tactical, all of our outdoor footwear, especially, any of these things to try to make it in the United States, because there's less fabric selection, as well as a 4 or 5 or 8x the cost of what it would cost to import it, it's just not financially feasible. And for those that like run businesses that have inventory, will be able to understand this a little better. I'm not going to try to bore you, but you got to understand, if I were to have to sell a pant for $500 and it cost me $240 to make it, the cash that would tie up to just place one order of 1,000 pairs of pants is incredible. And to only have a gross margin of around 50%, before discounts and returns and exchange and all these things, and of course, not even counting operating expenses, it makes it very difficult to make a profit. Because if your gross margin, that's the starting point for running a profitable business. If your gross margins are trash, you're just never going to succeed. And it's something, in the very beginning of this, Mal and I tried, because I was just naive. I didn't know anything about apparel, right? So like that was my first swing. I was like, oh, of course we're going to make this in the U.S. This is like 11 years ago, and I'm just figuring it out. I quickly learned that, oh, wow, now I know why literally almost everyone makes it overseas. And that's what we did. And there's a few brands who have tried to do this. Now, they own the production facilities, so keep that in mind. That allows them to basically get their goods at, quote, cost. But even these brands, and I applaud them, they're good Americans, they're patriots. They're waving that flag of Made in the USA, and that's kind of their main thing. They're not financially doing well. They're losing millions and millions of dollars, and the product isn't as good. It's bottom line. So, if you want to buy a cotton T-shirt made in the USA, I think that might work. But for all of this other stuff, guys, it's just there's no way to do it. And I hope there's a roadmap to get there. And I actually, with the new administration, I'm going to throw a Hail Mary on this one, but I'm going to try to meet with someone from the administration so they can understand why it is the way it is and what it would take to get us back to being made in the USA as a country. And it would take a lot. And I really don't like government subsidies, but I think it would take an incredible incentive in form of government subsidies to get it back, because just the margins are not there. You know what I mean? If I remember when Mal was trying to get a sports bra developed, and I think it was in a factory in the Midwest, and she sent one of the bras that we import and was like, hey, like, what would it cost to make this? And again, this is like the 4th or 5th time we've taken a swing at this, because it does kind of stress me out. I'm like, man, we are a very, very American brand, and it does kind of send mixed messages. We're doing all these things for veterans and first responders, and was a service member, yada yada yada. But then we're like, we're made in Asia. Like that doesn't add up, right? So I'm with these people. I get what they're saying. But so Mal sent this sports bra, and we sell our sports bras for $52. Some of them I think are $55. And we got 3 different factories to quote this, and they come back to us, and all of the bras are over $60, and they actually made samples, and the quality of these samples was like worse than like something you'd get at Walmart for like a sports bra for $15. It wasn't even close. And Mal looked at it like, well, no one's going to spend $150 on this. They wouldn't spend $20 on this. So it quickly becomes a dead end. And again, it's like it's disappointing, and I wish there was another way, and maybe in the future there is. But for industries like textiles, like, apparel, like, it's just a very difficult business model, because if your gross margins in the very beginning are absolute trash, it's very hard to succeed, particularly in apparel, because it's not like everyone's going to be made in the USA, right? Everyone's going to, if we were to switch everything made in the USA, you know what I mean, but keep our prices flat, we would literally lose millions of dollars. We would be, underwater instantly. But it's not like now you guys as the consumer are going to be like, oh, well, I'm going to go shop Born Primitive now because they're made in the USA. That's what the consumer says, but that they don't actually do it. And that's where the disconnect is. Or they'll do it once and they'll get a really crappy pair of pants that was $140, that isn't technical and the fabric's no good, and they realize, oh, that imported product, I hate to admit it, it's better. So I hope that sheds some light on it. Again, it's a hard topic, and I wish it wasn't that way. What we try to do is like, all right, given that we are able to make margins on our products, what can we do to leverage the platform to still kind of do our part as an American brand? And that's why we do things like, the veteran medical bill debt payoff. And, we've donated well over $2 million to date prior to that, leading into this year, and supporting World War II veterans going back to Normandy. That is our way of trying to say, okay, got it, but we're still trying to do a lot of good for America and for particularly those who have served. All right. Notable failure or mistake you made, and what did it teach you? I think for this one, I guess an example I might want to give is I actually tried to launch a business right before, a few years before Born Primitive. And it was a product actually we developed in college, and it was actually a quick version. It was basically a giant koozie for kegs. I took a class in college, and you're supposed to like invent something, and the teacher teaches you how to like launch it in a marketing plan and get a patent and all these things. And at the end of the semester at Yale, this guy pulled us aside and was like, hey, this is actually something you guys should try to run with when you graduate. And we were seniors. So when we graduated, we started doing the research, and we got a design patent on it, and we raised $110,000 in capital and put together a business plan. And I had to find a warehouse to lease and a $60,000 printer to lease, and, raw materials and how we're going to make this thing. And we did all of that. And I ended up going and pitching Miller Coors in Chicago and presenting this to not their board, but their point of sale division with like some of their brass that were there. And they love the pitch. And we were high-fiving. We thought, okay, we've made it, because we wanted to do the business-to-business play right off the bat. We didn't see this as like a direct-to-consumer type business, because we wanted all these beer distributors to get the product because it could insulate the keg, but it also would brand it because it looked like a giant beer can. So if it was like Miller Lite, it looked like a giant Miller Lite can wrapped around a keg. So it was really good for their special events and things like that. So we took a swing at this, and everything went well. And Miller Coors was basically like, all right, how quickly do you think you could get us like 4,000 units? We want to get 2,000 of Miller Lite, 2,000 of Coors Light, I think was the ask. And they said, we said, we can order the raw materials like tomorrow. Let's go. So being naive and dumb in 23, I submitted an order for the raw materials like the very next day or within a couple days for, tens of thousands of dollars without getting a purchase order, because again, I was naive. I had never done this. And sure enough, a couple months go by, it's still in the works. The director of the point of sale division, Pete, I won't mention his last name, but it's still burned into my brain, was laid off, and a new director came in and put all stop on all programs that were currently ongoing. So his number two had to call me with his tail between his legs and say, hey, I know you guys are basically about to make 4,000 units of these, but everything's on hold, and I can't give you any guarantees. So that fell through. We tried to shift to Anheuser-Busch, couldn't get a meeting with them, and now we have a 5-year lease on a building, a 5-year lease on a printer that's very expensive, and I have a 54-foot container of foam showing up to our warehouse that I have nothing to do with. So we tried to pivot and sell to the direct to the consumer. The demand just wasn't there. No one's paying $60 or $70 for, a thing you wrap your keg with. Although it was cool and funny, like it just, there's not that many people using kegs regularly to warrant, spending $70 or $80. And kind of got punched right in the nose at my first real bout at entrepreneurship, and a lot of lessons learned from that. And I think the biggest takeaway was that we weren't deterred, by failure. And I immediately pivoted, and that's when Born Primitive was born. And Mallory probably thought I was a total maniac considering we had just like completely failed. But the lessons that I learned, although we were out the 110, or the investors were, the lessons I learned as a 23-year-old young buck in business, I was immediately able to apply to, Born Primitive. And the best lessons learned are the ones learned the hard way. That's why, if you're ever getting advice or mentorship from someone who's 20, 30 years older than you, and especially if it's business mentorship, listen to them, because the reason they probably know these things is because they did it wrong at one point and they learned the hard way. And we were able to take a lot of those lessons and immediately apply it. And I think that, put us on a good path. Now, we still made a million mistakes in the early days of Born Primitive, because it's a totally different business, but there were key themes that we were allowed to, able to kind of pull out of the mistakes of the first time, and avoid a few of those landmines. So, I think moral of the story is, don't be afraid to fail. We get a lot of people, a lot of people will hit me up about advice on being an entrepreneur and, hey, I have this idea. What should I do? And, I think it depends on where you are in your life. I think if you're a little older and you got a family and it's going to take some financial risk, I probably would urge people to be a bit more cautious. But in instances where people are a little bit younger and there's less people relying on you, if you're not a father yet or a mother, or, I think if you're married, you can still pull that off, because it's just, at that point, if it's just two of you and there's no kids yet, that's the time to take chances and swing for the fence. Because even if you don't get it right the first time, you're gonna find something that to succeed with, particularly because every time you lose, you're gonna have major takeaways that's gonna make you more polished and even better for the second go at it, or the third, or the fourth, or the fifth. And for those that are that heard the Gary Vee episode, I think he had a great analogy. It's like in baseball, if you bat 3 out of 10, you're in the Hall of Fame. So with entrepreneurship, I think there's a similar theme there, that you're not always going to hit a home run. And you're going to make a ton of mistakes, and some of your ideas might be flops. But if you're relentless and you're not deterred by failure, I think there's a lot of potential for success there, albeit it'll come with a lot of stress and a lot of headaches. All right, I think we got just a few for the speed round, just for fun. All right, when are you going to make a tactical boot? The Patriot one is finalized. It will come out in September of 2025. Expect more to come from that, but we are really excited about it. And we are actually just in Tennessee, fast roping from a Black Hawk helicopter, validating the fast rope strip on the interior of the boot to make sure that we weren't going to literally burn through it. For those that have done fast roping, know what I'm talking about. And it passed with flying colors. It's a great product. I think we're on our 11th prototype, so we're really excited about it. Bruno and Kurt and the team have done a great job. Really getting that right. We've jumped out of planes with it. We've done open ocean swims with it, with a fin over the boots, or with fins over the boots, and done shooting, all that stuff in it to kind of make sure that it holds up in different environments for the operator. So that is in the works. Late September 2025, you can book it. How can I work with the Stream brand? Thank you for the compliment. Go to our careers tab at bornprimitive.com, and all of the postings are always posted there. Whataburger or In-N-Out? I think that's a no-brainer. In-N-Out. Let's see here. What else we got? Any plans for more everyday footwear? Yes. So right now we have a running shoe in development. We don't have a name for that one yet. So if you have any good suggestions, all the cool names are taken. And we are working on a high top Savage one, as well as a barefoot trainer, as well as like a street shoe, kind of like like a hybrid of like a Vans or like a Nike kind of skateboarding shoe. And what else am I missing? I think that's all I'm willing to tease right now, but there's a few other in the works that are still classified, if you will. All right. The 2 new Savage ones going to be permanent additions to the Savage One lineup. They're talking about the Freedom Capsule, Betsy Ross, and Don't Tread on Me. I think it's going to be. I think we were still on the fence. I know the Betsy Ross editions will be getting restocked. I think by the time this airs, it'll be right around that time. And I don't know if the Don't Tread on Me edition has a restock coming in December, but that one did really well. We actually bet on the Betsy Ross being a better seller, but the Don't Tread on Me, so the black and yellow one, outsold it like almost 2-1. So we made a bad bet on that. But I mean, they both crushed. So I think that Don't Tread on Me, we can probably expect to be coming back. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you tuning in. I think we'll have Big Tone back on the next episode. Obviously, he's got a little one that just joined the world, so we wanted to give him some time. And I think for these types of Q&As, he adds a lot, and kind of puts me in my place. So hopefully that wasn't too much of a monologue rant. But thank you for the questions, and thank you for everyone who continues to follow the podcast. We get a lot of awesome feedback, and just a lot of positive responses to us. And we've made a little bit of a concerted effort to use this platform to go, of course, a little bit more long form, but be a little bit more vocal on our viewpoints. And of course, most of those are just my personal viewpoints, but some of them I think can be absolutely attached to our brand, Born Primitive, particularly when it comes to kind of just being unapologetic and our love of our country and the founding values, and particularly the support of our military and first responders. So thanks to everyone who's been following along, and particularly those that joined the Veterans Day campaign. That was just absolutely insane. It was a wild 96 hours, and so cool to see. Yeah, and I guess maybe I'll close on a positive note, since I was talking about a few divisive topics there earlier, but to see the unity and people coming together around a common cause. The people who supported our Veterans Day campaigns were. There was no political affiliation, right? It was just Americans. It allowed us to pay off debt for probably close to 6,000 veterans, some of which I was able to, personally talk to and call on the phone. And it really humanized it when I realized the impact that this was having on them at an individual level. A mother of two who, is in crippling debt, or the Wesley, the Marine, who I wasn't able to ultimately speak to, connect on the phone, but $183,000 gone. He was temporarily paralyzed, and the list goes on and on and on. And we're starting to actually get letters from a lot of these people. One of them I actually have framed in my office now, because I want it to be a reminder to me that we have an obligation to use this platform for good. And we don't need to be buying houses in Malibu. Let's weaponize this platform to do good for those who served. And of course, there's other causes we're going to attach to as well, not just that all the time. So thanks for being a part of that. And for 2025, I guess I'll tease it now. We're going to try to probably join forces with Black Rifle. Now, this isn't official, so don't hold me to this, but it seems that Evan gave me a handshake that this is something they would love to support next year. And there's a third entity who I'm not going to tease yet because it's not official, that is much bigger than both of us, that might want to be a part of it. So I'm gonna set a crazy high bar if that third entity can get involved. I think between the three of us, we could pay off $50 million in veteran medical bills. And that scares the shit out of me. But if your ideas don't scare you, they're probably not big enough. So stay tuned. We hope you stay with us until then. Obviously, a lot of other cool stuff in the works prior to, but next fall, including that Veterans Day weekend, 2025 is going to be a wild one. So appreciate it, guys. Have a good week, and thanks for supporting the brand.